She's an Emmy-winning journalist from the White House to war zones, telling all sides of the story. This is The Rita Cosby Show.
And on this Friday night, I thought I have heard it all. I never imagined in my lifetime we would have something as Orwellian as a disinformation board at the Biden administration. Boy, are we in trouble, guys. They suddenly come out with this after word gets out that Elon Musk is buying Twitter. And of course, the liberals go crazy. Oh my goodness, it's going to be so stilted now, as if what they were doing before about the Hunter Biden laptop and all those other things, as if that wasn't slanting the news. My goodness. And now we have basically the czar of disinformation, who essentially is like Mary Poppins. This is the wildest thing. We're going to talk about this later on in the show, because at first when I heard this, I thought, oh, this has to be a joke. This is just somebody like, mixing things up on social media or doing something, tweaking with the audio. Sure enough, this is the real audio of now the woman who is in charge of determining what is disinformation in the Biden administration. Now, they claim that it's basically designed for the border, that it's basically designed towards homeland security issues. In other words, people who might want to go after America and to be able to separate fact from fiction. I'm thinking you can't even handle the border as it is right now. And you're going to add a layer of determining what is disinformation and what isn't. And I can tell you right now, I do not want the Biden administration, and I definitely don't want this woman deciding what is disinformation, what isn't. She's the one who was saying that the Hunter Biden laptop was hogwash, all the Trump investigation, go forward with this. I mean, this woman is not an unbiased character, and she's also a wacko. Take a listen to her. This is, again, of all people that they pick in the country. First of all, I don't like the idea of a disinformation board, and I want to get your sense on how dangerous and I think McCarthyite and Orwellian this sounds. It's so dystopian to me. It's such an uncomfortable thought that these people are in charge, that they're going to be like ratting out if they don't like what you say, as if you trust the Biden administration to be determining that. And what a coincidence, again, that it comes up right after everything with Elon Musk. I mean, to me, that is just, it's so transparent what's going on here. And then of all people in the country, they pick this loony kazoonie. Take a listen to her.
Laundering is really quite ferocious. It's when a huckster takes some lies and makes them sound precocious by saying them in Congress or a mainstream outlet. So disinformation's origins are slightly less atrocious. It's how you hide a little lie. It's how you hide a little lie. It's how you hide a little lie. When Rudy Giuliani shared bad intel from Ukraine, or when TikTok influencers say COVID can cause pain. They're laundering disinfo and we really should take note and not support their lies with our wallet, voice or vote. Oh, information laundering is really quite ferocious. It's when a huckster takes some lies and makes them sound precocious by saying them in Congress or a mainstream outlet. So disinformation's origin seems slightly less atrocious.
Wow. That is the person who put that out about disinformation not that long ago. And now that loony kazoonie is in charge of deciding what is accurate and what isn't accurate about the homeland and what's out there. To me, this is really scary, because now they're shaking in their boots about Elon Musk and they're trying to come up with some alternative. And they found this loony kazoonie, Mary Poppins woman, who is clearly one of the most biased people I've heard out there, and not a very good singer either. So we're going to get into that later on in the show, because to me, that is just so stunning that there is something like that out there, that in this year, 2022, that an administration would say, we're going to create a government disinformation board. And I want to get your take on that. Are you as uncomfortable as I am about it? Because to me, I shake my head. I think it's disgusting. I think it's frightening. And I think we are headed in a really dangerous location if we go there. Everybody, of course, you're listening to The Rita Cosby Show here on this Friday night. And one of the other big stories is, of course, crime. And we are seeing enormously skyrocketing numbers across the country. Almost all the major cities are definitely seeing rocketing crime. And we're seeing it in New York as one example, guys. In New York, crime has spiked essentially 40%. So what does New York City Mayor Eric Adams do to go after crime? Does he say, okay, I'm going to finally keep Alvin Bragg, who's the soft on crime DA in New York, am I going to finally put him in line and basically say, do not let repeat offenders out? As we know, there are just a couple thousand that seem to be repeating over and over and over again in this revolving door that we're seeing in major cities across the country. That's the place to go after it. Oh, no. Eric Adams, the mayor of New York, decides he's going to go after the police and go after their use of cell phones. To me, this is one of the most outrageous things I've ever heard. You hear, okay, gosh, we're going to start cracking on crime. We're going to try to streamline things. I'm thinking, okay, good. Maybe he's going to finally get tough on the DA, finally get tough on judges. Maybe he's going to finally say enough is enough. You see the numbers, they are skyrocketing all across the city, and that's happening in all the major cities across America, essentially, especially those run by liberals. And what does he do? He goes after the cops, like that's the priority. Are cops using cell phones? I want to get your reaction tonight to how preposterous that is. To me, that is one of the most insane things I've ever heard, that's the way that we're going to streamline things and really fix things. First off, the cops are using their phones often for work. They're looking, they get alerts all the time of like missing people, or here's an arrest, here's a picture, here's where you can locate someone. They were given smartphones as part of their responsibility. They were told to use them. They're texting, they're looking at images. This is the way technology works. That's the way you get a hold of them. And this guy doesn't know. He's a former cop, and he's spending his time right now not thinking of how to keep repeat offenders locked up, to make sure that violent offenders do not do it again. And there's a lot of them. He's going after cops with cells. What does that say to you about his priorities? And does that say to you that, first of all, he has no clue of what police really do, even though he's a former cop? That's what doesn't make sense to me. It's like he's a former cop. He should know how vital that is. But yet, he's saying if you see a cop there on their cell phone, make sure you hand in a picture of it. Like, speaking of the Disinformation Bureau and ratting out people, now we want citizens to kind of rat out cops and go, okay, if I see them on their cell, I'm going to take pictures. There are so many people that are videotaping cops all over the place. How many times do you see somebody like throwing something at a cop and then they start videotaping and go, oh, you're coming after me. Oh, all these things are constantly happening. And cops already feel like everything they do is being micromanaged. And now you are going to say, hey, rat out on a cop if you see them writing or doing something on their cell phone? They're working. This to me is insane. I don't understand why Eric Adams would come up with this. And I want to hear your thoughts if you just think this is one of the most ridiculous things for a New York City mayor at a time where crime is skyrocketing across this country, that one of his solutions is to ask citizens to take pictures of cops on their cell phone, saying they're not really using their time well. So you're going to go after cops? What about going after the criminals, for goodness sake? It's 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222, and you are listening to The Rita Cosby Show. Here is Eric Adams making the statement that I think almost every cop in New York and across the country went, are you kidding me, buddy?
You know, you walk downstairs and you see 5 transit officers standing at the booth looking at their phones. We just can't continue to do that. We are going to start taking very aggressive actions to make sure police are patrolling our subway system and not patrolling their iPhone. And if you see it, send me a picture. Let me know. Because I go to that district the next day and see exactly what's happening.
All right, so let me just digest what I just heard. Send me a picture and I'll go to that district. 2 things. First off, Do you want just people all over a major city, a big city like New York City or any big city across the country, sending pictures to the mayor going, hey, here's officer number 1234 looking at his phone at 2:01. Give me a break. And second of all, he's going to go down to that district. Is that the kind of use of time right now where crime is exploding? For example, in New York, remember there was the subway shooting that took place not that long ago? Today, there were 2 people that were killed by a subway train. There are reports that they may have been homeless individuals. Homelessness is a huge issue. Crime is a huge issue. And our mayor is saying, oh, yeah, send me the pictures. I can't wait to see them. Like, that's how I want my mayor looking at his time. And then I'm going to go to the district. That's really the best use of his time. The best use of his time right now would be to be at Alvin Bragg's office, the soft on crime DA, and saying, what the heck are you doing? You need to hurry up and get your butt in gear, or we need to try to get somebody else who can fix this city, because New York City, the crime is skyrocketing. And that is the same case that we see in so many cities across this country. And to me, there's so many of these. It's like, this is the solution. I was blown away at the stupidity of this comment, and so was Paul DiGiacomo, who is the head of the Detectives Endowment Association. Represents a lot of cops. Take a listen.
Well, the reality is this. That's a ridiculous statement because that phone is used as a lifeline for that police officer or for that detective. There are dozens of alerts that come over that phone on a regular basis. Missing persons, wanted people, accidents, fires. We are forced to look into that phone. It's part of our job today.
Yeah, and he is a former cop, the mayor of New York. He should know this is the solution to fighting crime at a time where violent crime is exploding, homicide rates exploding, gun violence is exploding, violence on subways is exploding. People don't even want to go near the subway. It's so dangerous. You had COVID, and now you got homelessness and crime all over the place. Are you kidding me? And his solution is going after the cops. That is pathetic. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Phil on line 2. Phil, your thoughts about the gun issues. I want to get your thoughts on that.
I wanted to talk about that issue of the government Truth Bureau.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Phil, because we're going to get to that later. But go ahead. It's Friday night. Go ahead.
Okay, here's the deal. As in Orwell's novel 1984, he spoke about the Ministry of Truth. Ministry of Truth's job was to basically rewrite history and tell people what is proper think and what is improper think. And what's happening here is you've got a political party that is the prime judge and jury on the matter of what is true or what is not. You can't have that. There was a constitutional amendment that says it's freedom of speech.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But Phil, did you hear, though, they're using it to say that it's about protecting the homeland. They're saying that it's the real creation. It was basically, anybody who's, sending out disinformation for people trying to cross America. I contend, Phil, because, what was it this week, Thursday and Friday, Alejandro Mayorkas, the head of Homeland Security, said the border they're doing a great job at the border. I would put a big stamp on that disinformation. Give me a break.
Well, the whole bottom line of the issue is that their label of what they consider to be true or not, or potentially true or not. You see, Rita, the biggest problem here, we have nothing but a term. It's so-and-so, whatever it is, bureau. We don't know what they're going to surveil, what they're not going to surveil, what qualifies as a mistruth, what qualifies as truth. We have no idea. We're slapped in the face and told, give it up. But we'd like, kiss us before you slap us. Give us some information, So we outline the program.
You're right. Phil, thank you very much. You're right. There's nothing to say exactly what it is, what the guidelines are. And second of all, they're the ones deciding what's right and what isn't right. That is a frightening place to be. We're going to continue with your calls, everybody. After the break, we're talking about this, also talking about Eric Adams and the fact that he is going after cops on cell phones. That is his way to crack down on crime. Are you kidding me? we're going to continue our conversation about crime in major cities across America. Eric Adams, the mayor of New York City, advising that the way to really focus on crime right now, not to lock the bad guys up, but to make sure that police aren't spending time looking at their cell phones, which they need to do for work. I mean, how insulting is that? The cops are already overloaded. They're crazed as it is. And that's his advice. And we're also talking about this sheriff, Bob Johnson in Santa Rosa, Florida County. Boy, he is making tons of headlines because he said he's just so fed up with seeing repeat offenders over and over again. And he is saying, you know what? There's stand your ground. There's all these issues that happen, as we know, in Florida. Remember all these cases? And he says, you know what, homeowners, if you are trained appropriately, if somebody breaks into your house, you can shoot them. Not that you want to open that up because you don't want it to be Wild West either. You want people to be trained and all these other things. But he's just so fed up about repeat offenders over and over again, attacking and hurting good citizens. We also heard Alex Villanueva, who is the sheriff there in Los Angeles, who said he is so sick of seeing the same gang members over and over again. And guess what happens? They get arrested. Then they go to George Gascon, the old soft on crime DA, and he lets them back out. And he said it is the biggest insult. I mean, things are so bad that sheriffs are openly coming out and saying, like Alex Villanueva, saying he's had it up to here with soft on crime DA George Gascon, who's the DA in his community. So can you imagine just how bad it is that they keep arresting the same ones over and over again? He's like, it's like a revolving door. And he said, this DA just does not get it. And that's why, by the way, Gascon and a couple of these others have recall efforts against them across the country. Where's the recall effort for Alvin Bragg in New York City? Because crime is so bad. We know that we've seen it with others. And George Gascon, by the way, this is his second recall effort. So let's see if this one maybe boosts him out. And that would sure send a great message across the country that good citizens have had enough. I mean, it is just outrageous. This is, again, one of those George Soros DAs who just continuously seems to get financial backing from these far left groups, and yet communities suffer tremendously when these people with this crazy left-leaning loony philosophy. And boy, are things a mess there. By the way, also later on in the hour, we're also going to talk about this Mary Poppins woman, which is just so kooky. I mean, this is so crazy. You can't even write this. Here it is. It's 2022. And the Biden administration has picked this woman to be in charge of disinformation, that anybody who proposes disinformation in America and elsewhere, they are going to call them out. And this kooky woman is like singing, this Mary Poppins tune and blasting, and she's in charge. She was one of the people who said, there shouldn't be, the Hunter Biden story shouldn't be out there. That's disinformation. Of course, we know that was wrong. She's one of the ones who said, there should be an investigation of President Trump on Russia. Turned out, of course, they said there was nothing there. So this is the woman who's in charge of disinformation. We are really into scary times with her. Also, lots of big developments also coming out of Russia, Ukraine. We're also going to talk about that because today it was really incredible to hear the Pentagon spokesperson, John Kirby, who, I've known John a long time. He's been associated with the Pentagon for a long, long time, always pretty stoic. He basically broke down almost in tears today because he said he's been looking at some of the images and some of the damage that Putin has done to Ukraine. And it was a dramatic moment. And a lot of people are saying, you know what, Biden, you got to get a spine. You're sitting here and, other countries like the British Defense Secretary came out and basically said, you know what? We are not afraid of Vladimir Putin. We need to tell Putin that this is his place in the world, that he needs to get out of Ukraine. He needs to know that the full might of NATO, if he takes things further, will be coming down on him. And so far, our government is looking like just mamsy-pamsy. And I want to get your take on all of that, too, as well, because is it time? Because there is a narrow window now with Victory Day in Russia. That is May 9th. And a lot of people believe that Vladimir Putin is going to try to do something before May 9th, which is not that far away. As you guys know, it's a little over a week away. And that could mean a very tough week ahead in the country of Ukraine, as they are just getting battered now by Russian attacks. And we're going to talk about that a big hour here coming up here on the Rita Cosby Show. But first, we are talking about crime in America because the numbers are stunning. And I want to play again. This is the reaction from one of the big police unions in the country. This is Paul DiGiacomo. He's with the Detectives Endowment Association. And this is his reaction to Eric Adams, the mayor of New York City, saying, you know what? We're going to try to really crack down on crime. And one of the ways we're going to do it is to keep an eye on police officers' cell phones. Listen to his reaction to that.
Back when he was a police officer, they didn't have cell phones. So it's different type of policing now. But it's an intricate part of policing now, these cell phones. And we obtain a lot of information from them. And it's something that is needed.
And then we have basically the sheriff in Florida, Santa Rosa County, Sheriff Bob Johnson, who said that he is so sick of repeat offenders that he is now telling residents to go to gun classes and be ready. And if somebody breaks into your house, you have the right to defend yourself. Listen to what he says about repeat offenders. This is Sheriff Bob Johnson in Florida.
You know, it's just some people don't learn. I mean, this is for us. He's job security. I mean, we deal with them all the time. So hopefully this time he'll go and he won't get out.
And he's talking about this guy named Brandon Harris, who was a repeat offender, wanted a multiple warrants, and was breaking into a repeated group of houses. Ultimately, he was jumping headfirst out of a window where he finally got apprehended. Thank God. What are your thoughts about this approach to tracking down basically on crime in the country? You've got sheriffs who have had it up to here. And even in New York City, you even hear the New York City Police Commissioner, Keechant Sewell, the woman, you know, she's been really vocal about bail reform, really vocal and frustrated about this revolving door. So why can't they fix it? My goodness. You know, it's a Democratic mayor, it's a Democratic governor, and you got a soft on crime DA. And guess what? There are primaries coming up. There's an election coming up. You know, there's midterms coming up. There's a whole bunch of stuff coming up. And boy, will there be a very powerful message if they can't get crime under control in so many cities across America. What does it take? How many sheriffs need to come out and say they've had it up to here? I mean, it is just skyrocketing right now. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Conroy on line 5. Conroy, your thoughts about this?
How you doing? So I retired 3 years ago from the New York City Police Department. I was a sergeant. I served 36 years. And in the 3 short years that I've been retired, they no longer do reports on paper. Memo books aren't done on paper. Everything's done on the phone. So just because a cop is on the phone, whether it's in the subway or in the radio car or on a foot post, he might be finishing his paperwork from the previous job. So to assume, and it's a police department issued phone, by the way. Is that their own personal phone?
Exactly.
So
Conroy.
doing something wrong is terrible.
Exactly. Conroy, you hit it on the head. They're doing so much work, and you just said that it was issued to them. That's the way also that, hey, you know, be on the lookout for this bad person, or by the way, now a missing child or missing somebody, or hey, this guy's on the run. Here's what he looks like. Here's a picture. Here's a description. Here's a description of the vehicle. I mean, what are we living there? What, you want them to go to a payphone and call in and ask for details? I mean, what does it say to you, Conroy, that a mayor who is a former police officer, and part of the reason a lot of people voted for him in New York City, you know, I remember I did a lot of coverage, and when people were voting, a lot of people said, well, he's a former cop, you know, he'll be good because he'll bridge over both. He'll understand the role of cops, and maybe he can help, you know, other people in the community. He can be kind of a good bridge to both. I mean, his solution is talking to cops. It shows to me such a disconnect from him, don't you think?
You know, without getting into detail, I was there when he was there, and he had a lot of issues. So I'll leave it at that. Yeah,
well, and it sounds now cops still have a lot of issues with him now. Wow, lots of stuff. Conroy, thank you. Let's go to Norman in Brooklyn. Go ahead, Norm, line 4, your thoughts.
Yeah, hi, Rita. As an NRA
By the way, Norm, I always love hearing from you. It's great to hear from you on Friday night.
I'd love to talk to you too, Rita. As an NRA benefactor life member, I think it's completely appropriate to brandish a firearm for an invading marauder. However, you cannot use deadly force and shoot that person unless your life is threatened. Now, what that constitutes is, I guess, up to the cops and the courts. But as Beretta said on that old TV show, don't do the crime if you can't do the time.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, and who was it? Robert Blake, right? Wasn't it Robert Blake? Was he Beretta? Oh, no, it was, oh, you're right, Conrad. You're right. You're right. You know what? I loved some of those crime shows, but absolutely, you have to prove that you felt that your life was in danger. And Norm, I'm also one of those people. I hear what this sheriff is saying. He's fed up. He wants a solution, and he wants to know people need to, like, he feels like the system isn't helping individuals, so he wants individuals to feel empowered. On the other hand, you don't want it to be like Wild West either. You have to be, responsible. You don't want somebody to go, oh, okay, so there's a lot of issues there. But Norm, thank you. I always love hearing from you. Thanks so much. Let's go to Pat on line 3. Pat, go ahead.
Hey, Rita. Thank you. I want to thank the FDNY, the police department, and the EMS for the great support they showed today for Tim Klein.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And by the way, would you tell everybody, because of course he was the heroic firefighter who died battling the blaze in Brooklyn. But boy, what a hero. Absolutely. Were you there at the service?
Yeah, Tim is my cousin. And I also want to speak on behalf of the detailed officer, or the officer who was on detail for our family, used his cell phone to communicate with all the detail commanders. And that's it. That's all he did with it. He used GPS. He communicated with us to tell us what was going on. So I think the cell phones of today are an integral part of what they do and how they use, a tool that they use to do their job. And that's what I witnessed. So
absolutely. Absolutely. And Pat, by the way, since you are Tim Klein's cousin, I just want you to share with everybody across the country a little bit, just briefly, about your cousin, because I have heard so many great things about him. And I was watching the images today. It was a massive funeral. And an outpouring of love and support here he goes in to save somebody and goes into the house. And it just epitomizes to me the courage of him and the courage of all the firefighters across the country.
Of all the firefighters across the country. But I have to say my family, the Klein family, has dedicated their entire lives to service. Both, I have other uncles and their children are also in the FDNY. My grandfather was a detective, but it's really, all of those guys are heroes, and they don't think twice about rushing into a dangerous situation to risk their lives. And what I know, and being immersed in that culture, is the good humor and the good nature of all of these guys when they're off duty, but they really are heroes when they go to work and they risk their lives for us. So you have to acknowledge it. So thank you, Rita.
Thank you. And thank you for your family service. And we'll be keeping, of course, Tim and all of you in our prayers. Timothy Klein, 31 years old, battling a blaze in Brooklyn, New York. And the service today was a beautiful, beautiful outpouring. I was watching the service and just, I think so many of us around the country are just keeping you in our thoughts and prayers, and I feel that we got to know him. Thanks for sharing a little bit of that with all of us, Pat. Thank you very, very much.